The blade hummed in Queen Zaretha's hand, its edge crackling with plasma energy as she stood over the collapsed human soldier. Her chitinous armor gleamed under the harsh lights of the medical bay, black and silver plates shifting with predatory grace. The human had killed 17 of her warriors during the evacuation of Outpost Meridian. 17 sons and daughters of the Hive, vaporized or torn apart. The surveillance footage showed everything. This particular human, designation Corporal Maya Santos, firing with ruthless efficiency as her people fled through the burning corridors. Now Santos lay bleeding on the deck plating, one leg twisted at an unnatural angle, dark hair matted with blood. Her rifle had skittered away during the crash landing that brought both their ships down on this barren moon. Zareth had tracked her here, to this abandoned research station. Justice would be swift. The Queen raised her blade higher. Santos didn't beg. Didn't plead. She simply watched with those strange, soft eyes humans possessed, waiting for death. Then Zareth heard the sound. A whimper. Quiet, broken, coming from the chamber behind Santos. The human's eyes widened with something beyond fear. Panic. Desperation. Please, Santos whispered, the first word she'd spoken. Not her. Zaretha's mandibles clicked together, suspicion flaring. A trap? She kept the blade steady, moved sideways toward the chamber door. Her thermal sensors picked up a heat signature inside, small, failing. The door hung partially open, twisted from some earlier impact. She shouldered through. A child lay on a medical cot, no more than 5 cycles old by human standards. The girl's skin held an ashen quality, lips tinged blue. Blood soaked through makeshift bandages wrapped around her torso. Medical equipment surrounded her, most of it dark and dead, but one monitor still blinked with a weak heartbeat pattern. The child's eyes fluttered open. They were the same dark brown as Santos's. Mama? She whispered. Zaretha's secondary arms twitched. She'd seen human young before, but only in intelligence briefings. Never like this. Never dying. Please! Santos's voice came from the doorway, stronger now despite her injuries. She dragged herself forward, leaving a blood trail. Kill me. Take whatever justice you need. But save her. I'm begging you. You killed my people, Zareth said, her translator rendering the words cold and mechanical. I know. Santos pulled herself another meter closer. We were following orders. Your ships appeared without warning. We thought. She stopped, shook her head. It doesn't matter what we thought. I did what I did. But Lily, my daughter, she's 4 years old. She never hurt anyone. Neither had my warriors. The ones you shot. They had families. Mates. Offspring waiting for them to return. I know, Santos said again. Tears cut tracks through the grime on her face. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But she's innocent. Please. Zareth looked back at the child. Lily had closed her eyes again, her breathing shallow and rapid. The monitor's beeping grew more irregular. Minutes, perhaps. Maybe less. The medical systems are offline. Santos continued, her voice breaking. The crash destroyed our power core. I tried. I've been trying to stabilize her, but I don't have the equipment. I don't have anything. She reached toward Zareth, hand trembling. Your technology is more advanced than ours. If you have a field medical kit, if you have anything, why should I? The question came out harsher than Zareth intended. Why should I save your offspring when you showed no mercy to mine? Santos's hand fell. She looked at her daughter, then back to Zareth. You shouldn't. You have every right to let her die. To kill us both. I accept that. She swallowed hard. But I'm asking anyway. Not as a soldier. As a mother. The word struck something deep in Zaretha's thorax. Mother. In the Hive tongue, it was Kelethmar, literally. Heart-bearer. The one who carried life, who would sacrifice everything for that life. The role transcended species, transcended war. Zaretha's blade lowered slightly. Lily's monitor emitted a sustained tone. The child's breathing stopped. Santos screamed, a sound of pure animal grief that needed no translation. She tried to pull herself into the chamber, her broken leg dragging behind her. No, no, please, Lily, baby, please. Zareth moved. Her combat instincts, honed through countless battles, calculated in microseconds. The child's heart had stopped, but the brain could survive several minutes without oxygen. Her secondary arms unclipped the emergency medical kit from her armor, while her primary hands pushed Santos aside with surprising gentleness. Stay back, Zareth commanded. She placed the blade on the floor, slid it away. Her claws, designed for killing, moved with sudden delicacy as she cut away the crude human bandages. The wound beneath was severe, shrapnel from the crash, by the look of it. Internal bleeding, definitely. A punctured lung, possibly more. The human's makeshift treatment had probably kept the child alive this long, but it wouldn't be enough. Zareth opened her medical kit. The emergency regenerator hummed to life, its systems far more sophisticated than anything humans currently possessed. She pressed it against Lily's chest, adjusted the settings for human physiology. Thankfully, her tactical database included medical parameters for most known species. What are you doing? Santos whispered. Saving her. Zareth didn't look up, focused entirely on the readouts streaming across her helmet's display. Be silent. The regenerator worked, nanobots flooding into Lily's system, sealing damaged vessels, knitting torn tissue. Zareth activated a second device, this one designed to restart cardiac function. She placed it carefully, pressed the activation stud. Lily's small body jerked. The monitor remained flat. Again. Another shock. Nothing. Santos sobbed behind her, the sound ragged and broken. Zareth adjusted the settings higher, perhaps too high for such a small frame, but death was certain and risk had become meaningless. She activated the device once more. The monitor beeped. Once. Twice. A rhythm established itself, weak but steady. Lily gasped, her eyes flying open. She coughed, cried out in fear at the armored figure looming over her. Mama! Zareth stepped back, her hands still trembling slightly from the adrenaline surge. Santos was already pulling herself to the cot, reaching for her daughter with desperate hands. I'm here, baby. Mama's here. You're okay. You're going to be okay. Lily clutched her mother, both of them crying now. The child buried her face in Santos's shoulder, small hands gripping tight. Zareth watched them. The rage that had driven her here, that had demanded blood and vengeance, still existed somewhere in her thorax. But it felt distant now, muted by something she couldn't quite name. Santos looked up at her, tears streaming freely. Thank you? She whispered. Thank you? I can't, don't, Zareth said sharply. She picked up her blade, the weapon feeling heavier than before. This changes nothing. You still killed my people. I know. When your offspring is stable enough to move, I will take you both into custody. You will face tribunal for your actions. I understand. Santos held Lily tighter. Will she be safe? During the tribunal? The Hive does not punish children for their parents' crimes. Relief flooded Santos's face, so profound it was almost painful to witness. Then do whatever you need to do. I'll accept any judgment. Just keep her safe. Zaretha's mandibles clicked in what might have been acknowledgement. She moved back to the doorway, scanning for threats while Lily's vital signs continued to strengthen on the monitor behind her. The Queen had come here for justice. She'd found something far more complicated instead. Santos was still her enemy. Still a killer. Still responsible for deaths that demanded answers. But she was also a mother who would have accepted death to save her child. And Zareth had been unable to strike her down. The implications of that weakness troubled her deeply. Lily's crying had subsided to quiet sniffles. Mama, who is she? Santos hesitated, clearly struggling with how to explain. Someone who helped you, sweetheart. Is she scary? No, baby. She's not scary. Zareth wanted to correct that assessment. She was scary. She was deadly. She had killed more enemies than this human child could count. But something stopped her from speaking. "Tell her thank you," Santos said softly to Lily. The child turned, her small face still pale but no longer death-touched. "Thank you," she said, her voice tiny and trembling. "Thank you for saving me." Zareth didn't respond. She couldn't. The words caught somewhere in her throat, tangled up with emotions she didn't want to examine. Instead, she activated her communicator and sent an encrypted signal to the Hive fleet overhead. "This is Queen Zareth. I have secured 2 human survivors at Research Station Theta-7. Requesting medical transport and security detail." The response crackled back immediately. "Acknowledged, Your Majesty. ETA 12 minutes. Status of hostiles?" Zareth looked at Santos, who was checking Lily's bandages with shaking hands. Looked at the child, who had fallen back asleep, her breathing finally steady and strong. "Secured," she said. "No threat at this time." She ended the transmission and settled into a guard position, her blade held loosely in one hand. 12 minutes until her warriors arrived. 12 minutes of silence punctuated only by the medical monitor's rhythmic beeping and Lily's soft breathing. Santos eventually spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why did you save her?" Zareth considered several responses. Strategic value. Political leverage. The simple fact that killing children went against Hive protocols. All true, to varying degrees. None of them the real answer. "I don't know," she admitted finally. It was the most honest thing she'd said since entering this station. Santos nodded slowly, accepting the answer for what it was. She stroked Lily's hair with gentle fingers, the gesture unconscious and protective. "Will they execute me?" "That depends on many factors. Whether this conflict was a misunderstanding or an act of aggression. Whether your government seeks peace or continued war. Whether you acted under orders or exceeded them." "I followed my orders exactly." "Then, your superiors share responsibility." Zareth's translator couldn't quite capture the weight she placed on that word. In Hive culture, commanders who gave reckless orders that resulted in unnecessary death faced severe consequences. Sometimes more severe than those who actually pulled the trigger. "What about your people?" Santos asked. "The ones I killed. Did they have families?" "Yes." "Will you tell me about them?" Zareth's first instinct was to refuse, to keep that pain private and sacred. But something in Santos's voice, the genuine grief there, the desire to acknowledge what she'd done, made her reconsider. Warrior Kelthas had 3 offspring. The youngest was barely past metamorphosis, still learning to fly. The words came slowly, dragged up from the hollow place where her rage had been. Warrior Jackson was bonded to their mate for 17 cycles. They were planning to retire after this mission, to start a garden colony. She paused. Scout Myra, she was young. Barely trained. It was her first combat deployment. Santos's eyes closed. Fresh tears slipped free. "I'm so sorry. Those words aren't enough. I know they're not enough, but I'm so sorry. They were warriors. They understood the risks. But that doesn't make their deaths less tragic. Doesn't make their families' grief less real." "No," Santos agreed quietly. "It doesn't." Lily stirred, making a small distressed sound. Santos immediately focused on her, murmuring reassurances until the child settled again. The fierce protectiveness in her movements, the way her entire being centered on her offspring's welfare, it was achingly familiar. Zareth thought of her own offspring, safe in the royal chambers aboard the flagship. 4 of them, each precious beyond measure. If someone had threatened them, she would have burned entire worlds to keep them safe. Just as Santos had fought with desperate fury to protect Lily during the evacuation. Just as Zareth would have done. The realization sat heavy in her thorax. They weren't so different, she and this human killer. Both warriors. Both mothers. Both willing to do terrible things to protect what mattered most. The sound of engines cut through her thoughts. The transport had arrived early. Zaratha's communicator crackled with updates. Her warriors were landing, establishing a perimeter, preparing for prisoner transfer. "They're here," she said unnecessarily. Santos had surely heard the same sounds. The human nodded, her arms tightening around Lily. "Will they separate us?" "No." The decision came without conscious thought. "She needs medical observation. You'll remain together in the medical ward until the tribunal." "Thank you." Santos's voice broke on the words. "I know you don't owe me anything, but thank you for that too." Zaratha's warriors entered the chamber, 4 of them in full combat armor. They moved with practiced efficiency, weapons trained on Santos, while medical specialists approached with a mobile stasis unit for Lily. "Your Majesty," Commander Thexal said, saluting. "We're ready to extract." "Carefully," Zarath said. "The child is stable but requires continued monitoring. They are not to be separated during transport or detention. Medical ward high security, but ensure the young one has access to her mother at all times. If Thexal found the orders unusual, he didn't show it." "Understood, Your Majesty." The medical team worked quickly, transferring Lily to the stasis unit with gentle efficiency. The child woke briefly, frightened by the strange surroundings, but Santos was right there, holding her hand through the unit's transparent panel. "It's okay, baby. They're helping us. Just sleep now. Mama will be right here." 2 warriors helped Santos to her feet, supporting her weight carefully despite her status as a prisoner. Her leg was badly damaged, she'd need significant medical attention herself. They fitted her with restraints, but notably light ones that wouldn't interfere with her injuries. Zarath followed as they moved toward the transport, her mind turning over everything that had happened in the last hour. She'd come here for vengeance and found something far more complicated. The tribunal would still happen. Justice would still be served. But the sharp edges of her rage had dulled, replaced by something more nuanced and uncertain. The transport bay was organized chaos, warriors moving with purpose while medical teams prepped equipment. Lily's stasis unit was loaded first, secured in the medical section. Santos was guided to a seat beside it, still in restraints but positioned where she could see her daughter clearly. Zarath took position nearby, ostensibly to monitor the prisoners but really because something kept her rooted there. She watched Santos stroke the stasis unit's panel, watched the way the human's eyes never left her child's face. The raw love there transcended language, transcended species. Commander Thexal approached, his posture formal. "Your Majesty, if I may speak freely?" "Proceed." "The warriors are confused about the prisoner transfer protocols. They expected immediate interrogation, isolation procedures. Instead, you've granted unusual considerations. The child is innocent and requires medical care. The mother's cooperation is more likely if she believes her offspring is safe." "Strategic thinking, Commander?" "Of course, Your Majesty." But Thexal's mandibles twitched in a way that suggested he didn't entirely believe the explanation. He was too good an officer to press further, though. "The tribunal has been scheduled for 3 cycles from now. The council wishes to hear your testimony first." 3 days. Plenty of time for Santos to heal enough to stand trial. Plenty of time for Zarath to sort through the complicated tangle of emotions this encounter had created. The transport lifted off smoothly, leaving the dead research station behind. Through the viewport, the debris field from both ship crashes glittered in the moonlight. Somewhere in that wreckage were the bodies of Zaratha's warriors, still waiting for recovery and proper rights. She would see them honored. She would see justice served. But, as she glanced at Santos, at this enemy who had become something more complicated than enemy, she wondered what justice truly meant in this situation. The human caught her looking and held her gaze for a long moment. No words passed between them, but understanding did. An acknowledgement of the impossible complexity they now shared. When they reached the flagship, Lily was transferred first to the medical ward, Santos following under guard. True to Zaratha's orders, They were placed in adjacent rooms with a transparent partition between them. High security, but not isolation. Mother and child could see each other, could speak if needed. Zareth should have gone directly to her chambers, should have reported to the council, should have done any number of official duties. Instead, she found herself standing outside the medical ward, watching through the observation window as human doctors worked alongside Hive medical specialists to treat Santos's injuries. Lily slept peacefully in her unit, her vital signs strong and steady. The crisis had passed. She would live. Would grow up, perhaps never fully understanding how close she'd come to death on that abandoned moon. Would she remember the armored figure who saved her? Or would that memory fade, replaced by whatever stories her mother eventually told about this day? Your Majesty. A new voice, soft and respectful. Zareth turned to find her chief advisor, Velsha, approaching with careful steps. The council wishes to discuss the prisoner's situation. I'm sure they do. There are questions about your decisions regarding the human child. Some council members feel you showed weakness. Others worry you've been compromised emotionally. Zaretha's mandibles clicked sharply. Do they? I assured them you always act in the Hive's best interest. But perhaps you could help me understand your reasoning? So I can better explain to those who question? It was a diplomatic way of saying even Velsha was confused. Zareth appreciated the careful phrasing, the loyalty underneath the question. Her advisor had been with her for many cycles, had earned the right to honest answers. I went to that station intending to kill Corporal Santos, Zareth said slowly. She murdered our warriors. Justice demanded her death. Yet you saved her offspring instead. And spared her. I saved the offspring because she was dying and innocent. I spared Santos because... She trailed off, searching for words that could capture the complexity. Because killing her while she begged for her child's life felt wrong. Not tactically wrong. Morally wrong. Velsha's antennae twitched with surprise. Morality wasn't typically a consideration in warfare. Strategy, honor, justice, these mattered. But morality suggested a deeper, more universal standard. You believe humans capable of moral behavior then? Of genuine care for their young? I watched a mother drag herself across broken glass with a shattered leg to beg for her child's life. I watched her offer her own execution if it meant her daughter would be spared. Whatever else humans may be, whatever capacity for violence they possess, yes. They love their children. As we do. Velsha was quiet for a long moment, processing. This complicates things. If humans are truly sentient in the way we define it, if they possess similar moral frameworks, then this conflict becomes something different than we thought. Yes. The Council will need to hear this. All of it. Your testimony will be crucial. I know. Zareth looked back at the observation window. Santos had been moved to a medical bed now, her leg properly splinted and treated. She angled herself so she could still see Lily through the partition, her eyes fixed on her daughter even as pain medication pulled her toward sleep. What will you recommend? Velsha asked. At the tribunal? I don't know yet. Santos killed our people. That fact doesn't change regardless of her motivations or her love for her offspring. But executing her achieves what, exactly? Creates another orphan? Another warrior filled with rage seeking revenge? Where does that cycle end? Those are questions for the Council to debate. And perhaps for both our species to answer together. Zareth nodded slowly. Arrange a secure communication link with Human Command. If this was truly a misunderstanding, we need to establish that before the tribunal. And if it wasn't... She let the implication hang. I'll make the arrangements. Velsha hesitated. For what it's worth, Your Majesty, I think you made the right choice. Not the easy one. Not the expected one. But the right one. The words settled something in Zaretha's thorax, easing a tension she hadn't fully acknowledged. Thank you, old friend. After Velsha departed, Zareth remained at the window a while longer. She thought about warrior Kelthus's 3 offspring, who would never see their parent return. About Scout Myra's family, mourning their daughter's first and final mission. About the cycle of violence that had brought them all to this point. And she thought about Lily, sleeping peacefully with her mother watching over her, both alive because Zareth had chosen mercy over vengeance. Time would tell if that choice had been wise. But standing here now, watching the steady rise and fall of the child's breathing, Zareth found she couldn't regret it. Even if it meant carrying the weight of harder questions forward. Even if it meant changing everything she thought she understood about this war. Even if it meant becoming something different than the instrument of vengeance she'd intended to be. Tomorrow would bring the council, the tribunal, the complicated work of building understanding across species lines. Tonight she would return to her chambers and hold her own offspring close, grateful beyond measure that they still lived, that she could still protect them. And she would remember the human mother who had taught her, however unwillingly, however impossibly, that some truths transcended the boundaries of war. That love looked the same, whether worn in chitin or skin. That mercy sometimes was the bravest choice of all.